Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising as we convene our second of three programs on remote viewing. As we get going today, I want to make a point that I think undergirds the importance of all of us beginning to train ourselves in how we become more aware and how we begin to communicate intelligibly with extraterrestrial beings. One of the reasons why this is such an exciting time in world history, actually, for all sorts of reasons, but in particular in the history of UFOs, now called UAP, and the disclosure that's beginning to take place, is that we are experiencing an extraordinary sea change. And it's happened very quickly and is increasingly in the public domain. I want to start with the Robertson panel back in the early 1950s, where the government, the CIA in particular, made the decision, codified in various memos, that because of the national security importance of the UFO phenomenon, remembering that it was in July of 1947 that the Roswell crash took place, where two alien craft, non-human technology, and 5 bodies, non-human intelligences, were found in the desert outside of Roswell, New Mexico. And the immediate response of the government was to classify it as even more secret than what they were working on in terms of nuclear weapons technology. And then they took the additional step, unprecedented in history, to begin a systematic, concerted campaign to eliminate the very issue from public discussion, academic debate, religious reflection, scientific inquiry. Now, just imagine for a moment, to take in the gravity of what the Central Intelligence Agency succeeded in doing, if in trying to keep secret nuclear weapons technology, they eliminated nuclear physics. And there were no universities anywhere in the world that were teaching nuclear physics. Where would the world be? That's what happened with the UFO phenomenon. It was eliminated from the public domain. The CIA went in to media, to universities, to high schools, to entertainment, to Hollywood, to scientific sector, and basically eliminated the entire domain with such effectiveness that if you even really talked about UFOs, you were considered crazy. When airline pilots or military pilots reported seeing UFOs, they were immediately silenced. And if they persisted, they were demoted, marginalized, and sometimes killed. So when in 2017, the New York Times put it on the front page saying that the government has known about this, and when the US Congress began the machinations of disclosure and hearings, such that in July of 2023, David Grush and military personnel testified that this phenomenon is real and there's evidence to support it. And now Lou Elizondo, who took the information to the New York Times back in December of 2017, is now #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. The sea change has occurred. and at the essence of what's taking place is that up until literally a few months ago, the onus was on those who asserted UFOs to prove that they were real. And now, because so much evidence is splashing around the global media and public domain, the onus is on the legacy group, the military-industrial complex that's kept it secret for so many decades, to prove that they're not real. That's the sea change. It's worth remembering that in the year 1600, in Rome, the Catholic priest Giordano Bruno, who had been asserting that life forms exist in the larger universe, was literally burnt at the stake by the church. You can still go to Rome today, to the very plaza where he was executed. And now the people that are saying that alien civilization, extraterrestrials exist, are on the New York Times bestseller list. That gives you a measure of the sea change over time. And that's why what just a few years ago was considered an arcane, almost mystical, paraphenomenal sideline, remote viewing, is now coming into the center of the discussion. Because not if this is true, but since this is true, we all need to take it in. We are not alone. And increasingly, everybody, including the US government and governments around the world, are beginning this laborious process of recognizing and acknowledging the most obvious fact in the world. So the great opportunity for each and every one of us is to get acquainted with our cosmic neighbors. And the one thing we know about them is that they communicate through mental telepathy. So remote viewing, various pathways in the paraphenomenal, is the new frontier for humanity. So thank you, everyone, for joining us here on Humanity Rising. It's always such a pleasure to be with you and to be part of these extraordinary conversations. I want to now welcome back Birdie Jaworski, who is the founder and chief executive of the TransDimensional Systems company that teaches remote viewing around the world's capacity that she's had for nearly 30 years. So she'll be taking the time today and also visiting our after chat to deepen our understanding of this extraordinary but accessible phenomenon available to us all. Birdie, welcome.
Hey, everybody. It's so glad to be back with you today. If you missed yesterday's event, we're talking about remote viewing. And remote viewing is a process that literally every single person on the planet is capable of doing. It is an easy way to use just your consciousness, the power of your own mind, to access information from any time, any place, anywhere. Doesn't have to be on Earth, can be off Earth. Doesn't have to be right now. It can be in the past, and it can be in the future. So we're going to continue our discussion on remote viewing today, and I'm excited to talk with everyone after the show and the after chat for a little bit. So today what we're going to be covering, I'm going to show you some cool examples of remote viewing. The one I talked about yesterday, the one prediction I made a long time ago, I'll show you that scan of that session, and I'm going to show you what some of my students just last week did, brand new remote viewers who had never done remote viewing before and had incredible results. Going to show you those, and then I'm going to share a little bit about how to remote view with you. You're going to learn a little bit this morning, and I would like if you give it a try. So while I'm talking, grab some blank paper and a pen, pencil, crayon, doesn't matter. And when we get to that part, I will lead you through an exercise, and then you're going to remote view something blind. You're not going to know what it is. And after the exercise, I will reveal, and you'll be able to share your results with each other in the after chat. And you may also email them to me afterwards if you're excited about it, or if you're confused about it. It's a really interesting process, but literally everyone is capable. And I know that every single one of you is an amazing psychic spy, whether you know it or feel it or not, I promise. So let's talk again about what remote viewing looks like. So there are many different methods of remote viewing. There's the traditional military method that they spent over $20 million and over 20 years developing, and they worked with known psychics to develop this program called CRV, or controlled remote viewing. I ended up taking CRV and modifying those protocols to have something that was less militaristic, more expansive, less patriarchal, more inclusive. And so the kind of remote viewing that I teach is something that anyone could be happy and feel familiar with. It kind of piggybacks off your own intuition and allows you to explore things. In remote viewing, typically what we're doing is we're giving our left brain, that rational, controlling part of our psyche, something to do, while your right brain pours forth with all kinds of interesting information. We are all creatures with a right and left brain, two hemispheres that have to work together. And it's part of our whole evolution that we've developed this bicameral mind, and it can serve us well in remote viewing it's really kind of, I call it the right brain rodeo. It's one of the terms I use for remote viewing, because you're really trying to wrangle your subconscious and allow it to give you information without the other half of your mind saying, this can't be real. We can't do this. I'm not capable. It's not real. It's real. So let's take a look at some interesting results. So I'm going to share my screen now. And the first thing I'm going to show you is that prediction that I made, oh my gosh, a long time ago, 3 years before the tragedy, the 9/11 terrorist attack tragedy. And I had remote viewed this in 1998. And the target, the thing I was asked to remote view blindly, I didn't know what I was remote viewing, was the next big terror attack on the United States. And this is what I drew. Hold on a second. Share. Okay, there you go. This is the sketch that I made that was 3 years before 9/11. You can see the Statue of Liberty, the Twin Towers. And what I thought when I drew this was a bomb, but it was clearly an airplane. You can see the wings flying right into about the location that it actually did fly into, the first plane. So this is just an example of remote viewing. Now I'm going to show you some examples from this past week when I taught 10 students here in Albuquerque, New Mexico to remote view. So I gave them something blind to experience, and it was the wedding of Prince William and Kate Middleton. And what did all the viewers did amazing. And here is just one simple example. Again, they remote viewed this blind. They had absolutely no idea what it could be. They only knew it could be anything, anytime, any place. And this was on day 2, I believe, of the 5-day class. And here is what one of my students drew. She wrote ceremony, wedding, church, royal family, celebration, spectators, happy tears, royal family again. She has Prince William and Kate Middleton there in the center, the officiant. They're conducting the ceremony, and different people on the right, the royal family with crowns on as an indicator that these were royalty, and then regular spectators on the left. So this is a typical kind of remote viewing session. Literally everyone is capable of results like this. Here's another example. Now this next one was what the viewers were asked to look at blind. They did not know, could be anything, anytime, any place. This was the filming of The Wizard of Oz. So the viewers all had really interesting imagery, and this viewer just really took us on a colorful journey. Here we go. If you kind of zoom in, you can see Dorothy down below on the left, and she's going on a trip, and the viewer was describing this to us before she even found out what this was. She drew a yellow road, like the yellow brick road. There's a wizard, a castle, and she meets companions, and she has this incredible experience. Now, this right here, this scan is of a huge piece of paper, and this is called a mapping exercise. And this is a part of the method of remote viewing that I teach. It allows you to have sketches, words, and concepts together, and to start making parallels between them, to start drawing connections so that you can develop the whole story and understand exactly what it is that you're experiencing. And this next one is also really fun. This is a simple sketch, but it says it all. And toward the end of the 5-day class, I exposed my students to the world of ETs and ET cases. Of course, they didn't know what they were going to be viewing. Could be anything, anytime, any place. They did not know that they were going to be looking at something that was extraterrestrial. And this was from a viewer who really grew so much during the class. He was kind of bound tightly at the beginning and didn't think he could do it. And he really had these incredible breakthroughs. And I was so proud of him. By the end, he was right there with everybody else. And this is what he drew for the Roswell crash. And in discussing this with everybody before I revealed what it was, he said this was a spacecraft that crashed into the desert. And he went on to describe it in more detail. Going forward, this was just one of the first sketch pages before we moved on to the mapping. So those are just some examples of beginner remote viewers, people that are like you, anybody out there with different backgrounds. You don't have to feel that you were a psychic or that you have psychic abilities. You could feel that you were the most achingly normal human being on the planet. And many people that I've trained have been firefighters, teachers, just people in regular jobs. And they're curious if they can do it. And like all my students did last week, absolutely. Every single one had breakthrough sessions. Many of them had what they call bilocation experiences, situations during remote viewing when the experience is so absolutely intense, so intense that you have a deep emotional response to it. And you might break down crying, you might break down in laughter, you might feel intense love if you're looking at something like What is God? That's a fun remote viewing experience to have. You can look at everything. You can even look at all those metaphysical questions you've wondered about. Have you had past lives? What were those past lives? Where do you go after your mortal body dies? What happens to your consciousness? What's the biggest secret on the planet Earth? All of these things are discoverable through remote viewing. These are all questions that I have looked at and many others have looked at over the years. And we are discovering so much more about who we are on this planet as part of this incredible human family. And remote viewing just opens it up to the cosmos and beyond. So now that what I'm going to do is I am going to teach you a little bit about remote viewing. So we're going to give it a try together. Okay. So I'm going to stand up and my camera should track with me. Now, when I'm teaching an online class, I have an entirely different, very professional setup so that the whiteboard is part of the screen and you know, it's a little more professional than what I'm doing here, but just this is just for fun. So if anyone is having trouble seeing what I'm writing, I'm going to articulate it carefully. This exercise is very, very simple. Get your paper and pen out. We're going to have some fun. Hopefully you'll be able to hear me. So let's stand up and I'm going to move the microphone so you can hear me. Woo! Okay, yeah, well, this is my home office, so. All right, so you should be able to hear me okay. Here's my whiteboard. Now, when you start a remote viewing session, and this is in almost all the methods of remote viewing, you start with one of those ideograms that I talked about yesterday. And here I'm going to illustrate what all of those are. Let me get a nice big thick marker so you can see what I'm doing here. Just give me a second here to get into place. My chair out of the way. Oh, and I really should mention this because everybody talks about this during a class. And especially if you want to embark on this practice at home and start practicing remote viewing every day, it uses up so much of your energy. It's insane. Our brains use up over 20% of our energy needs in the course of a day. That is absolutely, scientific knowledge. We spend so much energy, and when you're thinking a lot using remote viewing, you get exhausted and you have to eat a lot more. You will burn a lot of calories. Longtime remote viewers, we're all slim and attractive. Well, I don't know about that, but it does burn a lot of calories and I do have to eat a lot, especially on days when I'm doing multiple remote viewing sessions. So, and I'm going to keep an eye on the chat in case anyone has any questions. So here we go. Just scream at me in the chat if you get confused. Now, we're going to start with talking about these ideograms. Now, when you're first learning remote viewing, this is a good way to get in touch with your intuitive side, that secret language that we all have inside of us. So as I mentioned yesterday, if I asked you this fast to draw water, everyone would draw this. Can you see that? Everyone would draw a wavy line in a split second. If I asked you to draw a mountain, you would draw something like this. It's just part of how we parse and understand the world around us. If I ask you to draw a person, boom, this fast, everyone's going to draw a loop-de-loop. And if I asked you to draw flat land, well, that's a no-brainer, right? And if I asked you to draw a structure, like a building, that fast, everybody would have something with a right angle. And the final, there are 6 kind of basic ideograms, and there are some others for more specialized remote viewing cases, but just for the bulk of everything we're going to look at in remote viewing, there are 6 basic ideograms, and the 6th is energy, because sometimes you have something where it's primarily a burst of energy, like a atomic blast, for example, or a solar flare. You're not going to get particular structure or person. You're going to get that energy. And if you were to draw energy in a split second, it would be some kind of chaotic line. So a remote viewing session always starts with one of these ideograms. And as you become more experienced remote viewers, you can move beyond ideograms and start in other ways. But when I start teaching a class, we always start with this. So the way we start a class is I have something I want you to remote view, and you do not know what it is. And let's just pretend that I am going to give you Disneyland to remote view. That's not what we're going to be remote viewing today, but just pretend it's Disneyland. I will give you a random number that I associate with either a written clue, which is Disneyland today at 10 a.m. in California, or, you write it out with some intent and some particularity. Or it might be a photo of Disneyland taken at some moment in time. And what we're going to actually be remote viewing shortly is a photo. So if it were Disneyland, I would have that photo or that written cue, and I would assign a random number to it. And as I explained yesterday, what the military used to do was use the actual latitude and longitude of where they wanted their psychic soldiers to go. They were looking at particular foreign adversaries or the movements of troops, that kind of a thing, and they used actual coordinates. But over time, they discovered you didn't have to have the actual coordinates. It was the intent of the tasker, the person coming up with the remote viewing experience, that made the difference. And they just started using random numbers. And so today, we're going to use a random number. Now, I'm going to show you what we're going to do. And don't worry, it's going to be super, super, super fun. Hold on, let me find my, hold on. Okay. Had to get my eraser. Give me a second here, gang. Okay. So the way we're going to start this is I'm going to give you a random number, and let's pretend that this is Disneyland. Okay. So I'm going to give you a string, 2 strings of 4 numbers. So let's pretend this is the number I'm going to give you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hope you can hear me when I'm over at the board. I'm trying to talk loud. You're going to write down the numbers I give you as I say them. That is going to keep your left brain super busy, that critical part of you that's going to be telling you that you can't do this. This is impossible. I'm not a psychic. It's going to be busy writing down the numbers. So the rest of you is going to have free reign here. When you get to the last number, you're going to just let your hand do a doodle, and it's going to be one of those ideograms. It might have components of 2 or 3 of those ideograms, but one will be central. Now, in the case, if we were actually remote viewing a photo of Disneyland, a photo of the Magic Kingdom or whatever. I'm not a Disney person. Sorry. It's probably a bad example, but I know there's a castle there, right? So you might get a structure. So when you get to the last one and you let your hand do it, do not think. Just think about the numbers and then let your hand let it rip. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh my gosh, I got a person. I didn't get a structure for the castle. That's because there's an absolute ton of people at Disneyland. So don't worry about what you get. You get what you get. That is my mantra. That has been my mantra for almost 30 years. And it's actually my base philosophy in remote viewing is you get what you get. I believe we are 100% psychic telepathic creatures, and this is easily accessible to us. And I believe that everything we get in a remote viewing session is 100% real. Now, sometimes it might be clouded by metaphor, our own understanding of the world around us. If you're remote viewing an ET craft, you're going to have to be describing things you've never seen before. So you might pull comparisons out and you might say, it's like this, it's like that, it feels like this. When in reality, it's so extraterrestrial, so alien, so foreign that you don't have the right language. You can only do the best you humanly can. So you have to give yourself some leeway and latitude and gratitude here and accept what you get. So in this Disneyland example, I am getting a loop-de-loop. So it's a person, and maybe it is Snow White because they do have those characters that wander around the grounds. Let's pretend what I'm seeing and feeling is Snow White. The next thing you're going to do is take your pen or crayon or pencil. It doesn't really matter. The military uses rollerball pens, and I do hand those out when we start class, but then we break out the fun stuff, crayons and markers and even clay for 3D modeling. So you take your pen and you're going to poke it into your ideogram. It's called probing. And every time you probe, you're going to immediately write down the first sensation that you get. And the sensations that you first get are going to be on the sensory level. You might get a color. So I might probe like this. And then I wrote the word blue. I think Snow White, doesn't she have a blue dress or something? Anyway, I wrote blue because that was the first thing. And then you just keep going. And for what we're going to try today, try to get between 5 and 10 sensory impressions. They could be colors. They could be temperatures. They could be sizes, magnitudes. They could be tastes. They could be smells. They could be temperatures, anything having to do with measurement or the 5 senses. Probe your ideogram, and don't think the probing is for your left brain to keep it busy. Let your right brain write what it writes. Now, this brings up a question that all new students have. This isn't viewing. I'm just writing random stuff down. At the beginning, it's not viewing, but you are getting accurate information. A regular remote viewing session takes between 60 and 90 minutes. It can even go longer than that. And what we're doing today is going to be all of 5 to 10 minutes. So you're not going to be involved in this long enough to start building the entire narrative and to start getting more visceral impressions and visuals. That just takes a little more time to expand the session, but we're going to get some quick things. I picked something super fun so that everyone can see what they get. And I can't wait to see what you guys do. So the first thing, you probe your ideogram, and let me probe and write some more examples so you can see what it's like. Okay, I know it's hard to see. I wrote blue, yellow, short, smells like food. There's lots of fair food at Disneyland, right? So you're going to do your impressions. Try to get between 5 and 10. Once you're done, you do a quick intuitive sketch. And so you'll start over here on the other side of your paper or below, or, it doesn't really matter how you orient the paper. You can do landscape or portrait. It's how you feel comfortable. Then do a quick intuitive sketch. So okay, there, poor Snow White. She looks like a pig with her little nose there. Sorry, Snow White. So you just do a quick intuitive sketch. If you are getting a person as your ideogram, your sketch should include a person. If you're getting a structure, your sketch should include a structure, but don't think too hard about it. Just boom, do it. And this first page in your remote viewing session is called a scan. So you're doing one quick scan of whatever you're looking at, a scan of the target, to use the old military terminology. So you guys ready to give it a try? You ready? Want to have a fun experience? And I'll guide you through it as we go. Okay, I know some people find it annoying, and I've been told this many times when I guide people through it at the beginning. So you're just going to have to go with it and let me guide you through, because I know this is new to most of you. It's going to be super exciting and fun. I promise. And I promise when you see what I've chosen for you, you're going to be like, wow, look what I got. I got this, this, and this. Okay, let's give it a whirl. So another thing that I have all of my remote viewers do in my group is I have everyone pick out a super secret spy name. And they start with that. They write their super secret spy name on their papers. And I think that that helps you kind of get into the mood. Plus, it's just sort of fun. So if you want to come up with a super secret spy name right now, by all means. And then let's take just about 10, 20 seconds and just take a few deep breaths. You're about to experience something. It could be anytime, any place, anywhere. You'll never be able to guess. Okay. Now I have the random numbers for you. And remember, I'm going to read the random numbers. And the second that you get to that last random number, boom, you're going to let your hand do a doodle without thinking. Ready? 3, 2, 5, 7, 6, 1, 9, 0. Okay, everyone should have their doodle. I want you to take your pen and probe that doodle, probe your ideogram, and write down a quick list of 5 to 10 quick impressions. Could be colors, textures, smells, tastes, relative size, temperatures. First things that come to mind. And when you're ready, go ahead and do a quick intuitive sketch. Okay, everybody should be about finished up right now. So let's reveal what you just remote viewed. I know that the first time when you just do a quick scan like this, it doesn't feel like anything. You feel like you're making it up, but there's real data in there. And what I want to invite everyone to do is take a look at what you drew and the language that you chose for your sensory impressions and see if you can find those things in this photograph. Give me a second here and I'll share the screen. This is what you remote viewed. Nikola Tesla in his laboratory with a huge Tesla coil and energy going everywhere. So you might have gotten a person. You might have gotten the structure of the building that Tesla is in, or the structure of the Tesla coil. You might have gotten the energy, the pure energy radiating outward. You might have gotten all kinds of interesting language and pictures here. And I'm very excited to see what people received in this quick little remote viewing illustration. So I will see if I can figure out how to post this picture in the chat so that you guys can examine it further. And we can talk about it in the after chat. Oh, I'm seeing people say they were so far off. That is not true. You have to really think about the language that you choose. And so somebody said a person in water and thinking they were in an inner tube. Energy often comes across like water because it has the same kind of motions as water. And your mind, having never been in the presence of a huge Tesla coil like this, is going to make that comparison. And the key in a remote viewing session is you do several scans and then you move on to other parts of the practice. Like I said, it's 60 to 90 minutes, and it always takes some time to get to the inner heart. So somebody else drew something that was similar in shape. Orange plasma sunrise. That's perfect. I'm looking at the chat comments here, and people are having some exciting results. I'm very excited. So why don't we bring Jim back on, and Jim and I can start talking about what it's like remote viewing aliens, ETs.
Well, that was amazing. How would you like to proceed?
I think I probably took a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I could talk and teach this stuff forever. So,
you know what I would suggest, Birdie, is that we do one more round.
All right.
I think people, myself included, we're a little bit, now that we kind of know the drill, if you have another photograph you could put up and we do it one more time, that would give people a second chance, and then we can discuss things. Would that be okay?
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful. So
yeah,
get cool. So let me
cool. I'm ready for another round myself.
Okay, good. But
I didn't do so well.
Some of these, hey, you get what you get. So so why doesn't everyone get fresh paper and take a minute or two to cool yourself down while I find something else for you guys to look at? Just give me a second here. Okay, I pick something from my bag of tricks. Okay. Okay, everybody. I have chosen something. Now I am going to get your random numbers together. And one thing to keep in mind is that when you're remote viewing, you're not actually remote viewing a photo. You are literally there in whatever form of consciousness this is, there's so much more about this we don't know than we do know. You're actually there at that place. And at that moment, that photo was taken. And so you might be picking up things that are all around you. You might be hearing things or seeing and sensing things that aren't in any particular photo, but they are there. And that's why it takes quite a while to do a full session, because you have to start building the foundation, and then you start making comparisons and making connections and building a beautiful narrative that gives the full story. Because remote viewing really is a form of storytelling. I believe we have an incredible experience, and then we want to share it with someone else. Okay. So is everybody ready again? And this time I'm going to give you the numbers, but I will keep silent after that. But just to remind you, I'll give you the numbers. Let your hand do the automatic doodle, the ideogram. Probe your ideogram, write 5 to 10, quick. The quicker you are at the beginning of a session, it really helps your right brain get that information out. 5 to 10 quick impressions, and then a quick intuitive sketch. And I'll give everyone adequate time. You ready? 0, 4, 1, 1, 2, 5, 8, 3. Okay, does everyone completed their scan? I'll go ahead and show the photograph. Something completely different than the last one. You never know what you're going to get. Here you go. This is the America's Cup sailing race. You might have gotten water. You might have gotten people working on the sailboats. This was taken from above. So somebody was in likely a helicopter or a small plane or a drone taking this photo. So you might have gotten that technology. You might have gotten the sense it's a competition or something's moving fast, or that there is a sense of urgency. There's all kinds of interesting things that can come out when you're looking at a race situation. And look at all the colors in there. There's a lot of black, there's some blue and red and yellow, a little bit of orange. And then there's also a lot of different logos from the sponsors of these different sailing ships. There's also famous people that operate or own many of these sailing ships. So someone got a ship in a storm at night. Someone got people in water. This is wonderful. Waterfall. These are all excellent for scans. For a remote viewing session, you're going to get one small, skinny little slice of whatever that experience is, that target is. And you build on that as the session goes. Series of peaks in high winds. What a beautiful description. And somebody got point and mountains, lake, moon landscape, ocean, blue breeze. These are beautiful, low-level descriptions, which is where you want to start when you first begin. This is fantastic. People in a boat, yellow, blue, salty, floating, vertical structure. You guys are all super secret psychic spies. I'm so excited. This is wonderful. It sounds like everybody had an incredible positive experience with this one. You guys are amazing. And everyone, like I said, everyone is able to do this. These are just small little snapshots. I'm giving you, you're doing this for what? 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes tops. Imagine how much you can develop this in 60 to 90 minutes, and with a lot of other tools and some training to understand how to pull information out of those first impressions, how to develop the work. I'm very proud of all of you for not giving up. I see a question here. What if you're not a good drawer? Well, Debbie, I was never a good drawer, but now after 30 years, I'm pretty darn good. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. And it's the same with remote viewing. Your drawing skills will improve over time, but some people are always going to be more focused on the conceptual data. And so you might get some rich descriptions using language. And as long as your pictures show the elements, like for this America's Cup race example, if you just drew a bunch of triangles in a wave for water, well, you did pretty darn great. But everyone did great. Even if you think you didn't get it, I guarantee that you did, and you were focused on an interesting aspect that you could develop and get more information from. Isn't this cool that just in a couple of minutes, you guys have learned how to become psychic spies? It's very cool. So Jim, come on back and tell me what you think.
Well, my first one, I'm sort of with Elizabeth Haynes here, that I ended up somewhere else, but let's parse my experience because it might be informative.
Let's talk about it. Absolutely.
So when you did the numbers, my first glyph was water. I saw kind of wave, and then I saw blue, and I got the sense of height, right?
This sounds great to me.
But then I went off the cliff, and I ended up, I got the sense of fun, right? But then I began to image that for the visual, and I ended up sort of in a circus with a merry-go-round. And so how does that happen? How do I start with a glyph and then end up off the cliff with something that wasn't in the picture? What's happening psychically?
You have to reframe your perspective here. What's happened? Yeah, absolutely. That was an amazing session, what you did. So that was the Tesla one. He's in his laboratory. There is a big...
No, this was the boat, the last one.
Oh, the boats. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, go over your data again. So I'm thinking about it in terms of...
I first had the wave.
You had the wave.
Then I got blue. Then I got high. Then I got fun. But then...
Okay.
The second, how do you...
Then you went to circus.
I ended up visualizing a circus with a merry-go-round. So how does...
That's perfect. Oh my gosh, this is why
else?
You didn't end up somewhere else. Your mind is trying to tell you it's like a circus because there's a lot of energy and excitement and people are watching this. It's entertainment. There's food. There's all kinds of, crazy activity in people. The idea that it's like circular, even a race has a beginning and an end. And I'm not sure what the, where they started and where they stopped, but the circus is an absolutely perfect comparison or metaphor for something like a high-end crazy America's Cup race. There's always all kinds of crazy people involved in this race.
It's a circus in some way.
It's a circus in some way. And so when you go further into the session, then there are tools to deconstruct those ideas that you come up with. And then you start saying, oh, this is why it's like a circus. And then you start breaking the data down. But that is an absolutely perfect first impression. Your mind, if you'd never been to this thing and you're like I said, you're not looking at a photo, you're literally there and you're experiencing all this craziness, your mind is going to say, like a circus, it's like a circus.
Gotcha. So,
yeah.
But then the left brain is always trying to get back in. That's part of the challenge, right?
It is. Your left brain is trying to make a conclusion or control the narrative. Say, okay, it's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. But we can work with those because there's always data, layers of data. Like your circus metaphor has multiple layers of relevant data. You didn't call it a funeral or, if you think about all the other things you could have called it, circus is a pretty good comparison to a crazy sailing race. It's entertainment. There's spectators and there are participants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at the chat here. People are having Elizabeth Haynes, I think my left brain hijacked me. I'm with you, Elizabeth.
Hey, that's normal. And the more you do this, the more permission you give yourself, your right brain to take over. And this is like everyone in the first time, the very first few, like the first day when I'm teaching like a 5-day class, the first day I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what you, and I tell this everybody every day of the class, but especially the first day, I'm like, this one's just for practice. This one's just for practice. I'm always telling people that so they let go of that expectation.
Right.
And then they always end up surprising themselves. But I think, you
now,
typically.
Does it help to be in a meditative state? Talk to us a little bit about the kind of the entry mood or the entry frame of mind that one wants to get into. Because if you've had a very busy day or you're distracted by some emotions, I imagine that would influence the outcome.
It does. It's always better to be in a quiet, mindful state before you begin. Some people like to engage in a meditation practice first. Another thing that's extremely useful is using binaural beats audio tracks, and you can find these all over the internet on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube for free. Binaural beats, and you want the theta.
B-I-N-O-R-A-L.
B-I-N-A-U-R-A-L. I think.
Binaural.
Here, let me. I'm gonna. If I type
binaural.
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 Yeah, binaural. Like
binaural beats there.
Binaural. Yep. B-I-N-A-U-R-A-L. And what these do, the Monroe Institute did a lot of research with these, and there are different tracks for different outcomes. So some are to increase the delta waves in your brainwave patterns so that you have a good night's sleep. But there are ones that are specific for remote viewing, and there's a number of them out there. And these are the ones that are going to elevate the activity of your theta brain waves. Theta state is where most people who are remote viewing, your theta waves are more engaged, and it will rise up if you look at your brainwave patterns. And so you can download or listen online live to any of these binaural beats that feature the theta state. And you can just put in some, you have to use headphones, because what happens is one tone goes in one ear and another tone goes in the other. You can't tell that there's different tones going in each ear, because there's usually some kind of beautiful, relaxing music on top of it. But what it does is it moves your brain waves around so that you get in that optimal remote viewing state. And
Gotcha.
And the more, honestly, the more over time, you can pretty much instantly get into that state, because you begin to recognize what it feels like.
Right, right. And
Yeah, but
certain breathing techniques it's anything
yes,
that gets you into a calm state of mind.
exactly. Many of the meditative breathing techniques are wonderful for this. And even just taking a couple of minutes quietly with your eyes closed before you begin. I mean, what we're doing today, we're all having fun and we're watching this on YouTube or on Zoom, and no one's in a super relaxed state of mind. But if you go and practice, there are many, many sites out there with remote viewing targets that will have the random numbers, and then you can click on it when you're done, and and there'll be a picture or a description of what you've remote viewed. So people can use those for practice. And if they'd like to practice, typically for beginners, I recommend you do 3 of those scan pages. You do 1, and then you do it again with the same numbers, and you will get a different aspect, or you'll go deeper into the experience. So you do 3 scans, and then the next page you do what we call a general sketch. You take a piece of paper and you do a big sketch that combines all of the elements from your 3 scans. So if you do that, you're essentially doing half of a traditional remote viewing session right there. And that should take about 20 minutes maximum. And there's so much more to remote viewing, but that's a good introduction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it really, if you take 20 minutes, that means your mind has a lot of time for distractions and clutter, like happened in some ways to me, where I went off in sort of a cul-de-sac and thought it was a circus.
It's okay to think that it is something, because what we do further in the session, even if you spend 20 minutes thinking it's a circus and describing the circus in many ways, you will find that the descriptions that you choose and even the imagery that you decide to sketch will match a circus, but will also match the America's Cup in this case. So you're going to choose those metaphors in that language and sketches that actually have layers of data that's real. You really do get what you get when we're solving any kind of a problem, whether it's something wrong with our car or a math problem, and we are thinking about how do we solve this problem? We never make things up. We may come up with comparisons. Oh, it's like that time when my dad did this and I was able to fix it. Or you come up with comparisons and metaphors all the time in our normal everyday language when we're solving problems. And that's how remote viewing works. We're not making anything up, but you are making a lot of comparisons, and it takes some practice to build that language between your subconscious and your hand and your mouth to give you more direct translation, I'll say, of the experience. And it just takes practice. And there are other techniques that we do that are, it's way too much to get into today, but that I go over in the full training, and I'll be covering in my free lecture series for anyone that's following along there. And I will go in great detail how you deconstruct when you have a storyline going, when you've made a decision. How do you know that this is a metaphor or this is actual directly relatable data? And there are all kinds of things that you do, and then you're able to give like a real narrative, and to say, and this is how it felt, and I know this is a metaphor, but this part is real. If that makes sense. Yeah.
And let me just touch on the Tesla photo, because I think I did something similar. I had the first glyph was something kind of tall.
Good.
And then I got the sense of a man sort of by a tree.
Oh, perfect.
In a very relaxed state. Because I noticed in the photograph he was reading a book.
And he had a cup of cocoa or coffee or something sitting there. Exactly.
But then again, when I went to do the picture, I got this idyllic scene of a sort of a man sitting with his back to a tree and grass and mountains in the distance and all of that. So again, I had this an initial clarity, but then it got manipulated somehow by my mental processes, and it ended up somewhere else. So presumably part of the training is how to sort of retroactively go back through your own clutter to get to that original intuition. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yes. But I do want to point out on your Tesla example, we don't know enough about what you were getting to find out if you were going on a tangent. And let me tell you why. Tesla's there reading a book, and you could have been getting into his head. We don't know what he was reading, and it might be something pastoral like that. He might be reading some Tennyson or Thoreau. And oftentimes when there is a person or another kind of sentient being, an ET, even a dog or a cat, you will get, if you're focusing on them, you'll get what they're thinking, and that becomes part of this amazing story. So if we had gone further with that session, then you would have been able to figure out, oh, he's thinking about this.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you could get a small piece of the overall photograph.
Right.
And in this case, it could have been an entry into Tesla's state of mind at that moment of the photograph.
Exactly. That's what you're getting, because you're not looking at a photo when you do this. You are there. Everyone here literally just spent 5 minutes with Nikola Tesla. Think about that.
That's a comforting thought.
I know. Think of the people you can visit. You can visit Einstein, Joan of Arc. You can visit some of the greatest mystics that ever walked the planet. You can visit with all of our ET friends. It's incredible. And then I teach how to actually have full conversations with these people. We call it deep mind probes, is what, some people call it. I just call it having a conversation with, and you literally can talk to these people, and that part of them that can access all this information like we do will talk back to you. So you can have a conversation with Tesla.
Well, that reminded me, remember back during the Bill Clinton presidency, when Gene Houston went into the White House and was helping Hillary commune with Eleanor Roosevelt. And
exactly.
At that time, it caused a big scandal, but she was just doing remote viewing, actually.
That's what she was doing. And I've had a number of politician types take my training over the years. I can't divulge some of those names, but there's some people pretty high up who have learned these skills.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, listen, this might be a good place to bring this to the close so we can get into the after chat. But before we do that, just tee us up about what you're going to cover tomorrow in our final session.
Okay, tomorrow we're going to get into ETs. We're going to talk about remote viewing ETs, the kinds of ET civilizations that have been interacting with humanity. What are the possibilities with using remote viewing as a communications tool? And I'm going to teach you a little bit more, and I'm going to give you an ET communication experience. And we will finish up the whole wingding tomorrow with my students' predictions on who's winning the election. And I'll show some of the pictures of that too, as I didn't have time to put that together.
Well, you're keeping us with bated breath for that one. Birdie, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. This has been really an extraordinary session. You can join Birdie in the after chat. You'll see the link in the chat box. You received it in your Zoom reminder for today. And then we'll see you all tomorrow for our final session with Birdie Jaworski. Thank you, Birdie.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
I will see you in the after chat in just 1 or 2 minutes. I need to use the ladies' room.
Bye for now.